they welcome seeing some humanitarian aid workers go out there, but they largely feel abandoned by the rest of the world. And some of my colleagues in Oxford set up a platform called Gaza Medic Voices on Instagram and Twitter. If you haven't seen it, I'd urge you to have a look at it. And it provides a platform for healthcare workers in Gaza to describe their experiences, photographs, audio testimonies, written testimonies, all of which have been verified. So a lot of work's gone on to verify them all, and they're describing what they feel like. And I've read many of the questions. I've received a lot of them myself from people, and the common theme is, why is this happening to us? Why has the West abandoned us? What have we done wrong? So they feel they've been abandoned by the rest of the world.
And they would take it, I would say, one step further too, and they're asking why are they not afforded the same sort of defense that maybe other people get, and they were concerned about why their values stop at the border of Gaza. Why do some of these values not extend to the people of Gaza? And they would ask, of the 13,000 now kids that have been killed, did they not have a right to live? And that's something that we would hear.
I think people in Gaza, and like many other people in the world, whether it's in the Arab world or the Muslim world or the global South and many Western countries, kind of see the hypocrisy in the way that the international community have dealt with this crisis compared to, for example, what happened in Ukraine or other places. And I think this, as American, undermine our national security and interest in the region, because we are losing the hearts and the minds, and our moral leadership in the world is undermined by what we are not doing in Gaza. Understanding the limitation, but understanding the power of the US and the administration, and the fact that we can do things much better and much faster than what we are able to do right now.
They do distinguish between the population from these countries and their governments. They are incredibly astute in that sense, and I echo what the other panelists have said as well on the rest.
Go ahead, sorry.
I work for Global TV, Brazilian network. My name is Carolina. I would like to ask you, obviously, compared to what you see there, what you feel is smaller, but how do you deal with your feelings and your traumas? And also, I understand you're going to DC tomorrow or the day after. Why? What exactly do you plan to do there?
I mean, the way we deal with our feeling is by having platforms like this, where we share what we have witnessed, the stories, the painful stories, and the suffering of the people, with people who can influence the situation. I think we need to make sure that the public knows what's happening. This is our duty. And it's also what we promised our colleagues in Gaza, that these stories and their aspirations and dreams will be conveyed to the highest level. So the meetings today and yesterday and the next 3 days are therapeutic to us, but it's not easy. These things stay with you for the rest of your life. Our goal in the next 3 days is to get this message to the highest level, because we understand, I think everyone understands, that the only country that can influence the situation is the United States of America. So by talking to the National Security Council staff and members of the Congress and the State Department, we want to make sure that they know what we know, and hopefully that will affect the decision-making process.
I think that we've all heard sort of tragic. We have colleagues there. I've been going for 5 years to Gaza. I have very good friends, very good colleagues there, and I can't offer them words ever when they tell me the tragedies, when they tell me the stories, and what they want are actions. And so I think that's how we manage. We cope. We come here. We work. It's not enough for us to just say, "I'm so sorry this has happened to you." We can't. There are just no words. So our therapy is our action.
Actually, my question was very similar. It was about how you process all of this, and if you could expand a little bit on that. Professor Maynard, you talked about how you were not prepared for what you saw in Gaza. Can you expand a little? What had been your experience previously, and why is it different today? And also, would you mind commenting briefly on Israeli claims that medical infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure in Gaza is being used as Hamas militant strongholds?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to address that. So I've spent nearly 15 years going to Gaza. As I said earlier, I've operated in their operating theatres, and I've worked in what are always very challenging situations, but it's become what I consider to be essentially normal for Gaza, but recognising their very challenging situations. And since October the 7th, almost daily, myself and my colleagues in Oxford, there's a big group of us who've been going out to Gaza regularly. We've been talking almost daily or messaging friends and colleagues on the ground in Gaza, particularly in Shifa Hospital during those first 6 or 7 weeks. And we heard and listened to and testimonies and saw pictures which were far, far worse than anything we were seeing in the press. So I really thought I knew what was going on, I was prepared for it, but as I said, I wasn't, and I saw things at Al-Aqsa Hospital which I still wake up at night thinking about. Appalling injuries in particularly women and children, the most devastating burns in small children. One child that I'll never forget had burns so bad you could see her facial bones. We knew there was no chance of her surviving that, but there was no morphine to give her. So not only was she inevitably going to die, but she would die in agony. And what made it even worse, there was nowhere for her to go and die. So she was just left on the floor of the emergency department to die. And that's just one story. We've all seen multiple stories like that. So I hadn't been prepared for that. I could go on describing the most awful clinical cases, and I think we've got lots of stories like that. I'd be happy to address the second part of your question about the Israeli claims that these hospitals are used as Hamas command centres, and I can only really talk about my own experiences over many years. And I've spent many visits at Shifa Hospital and a lot of the other hospitals as well. And I've never, in any time during my visits there, seen any evidence of military activity of any Hamas militants in any of the hospitals. I know Shifa Hospital very well. I've been to every single square inch of Shifa Hospital. There is no restricted access at all. I have never seen any Hamas militants, and in the 2 weeks I was in Al-Aqsa Hospital, I would say exactly the same, that I saw no evidence of it at all. Now, I cannot, and none of us can really vouch for what's going on in any tunnels. We didn't see that, but I can certainly say that I saw no evidence of it at all in the hospitals. And as a final comment, during those 3-4 months following October the 7th, as I said, I've been in contact on an almost daily basis, as I think we all have, with our friends and colleagues there. And these are people I've known for 10 years. I consider them to be very close friends, some of them like family. And they have never seen any evidence of that, and I would trust them implicitly. So I think they have, and the Israelis have provided no credible evidence whatsoever to support those claims.
If I can just add, with respect, I wrote an op-ed in USA Today about the Palestinian healthcare workers, and I just want to give a nod to them because we had seen things that I don't think we'll see in the UK or the US with respect to the environment that we have to practice in. And speaking for myself, I felt very overwhelmed the first few days that I was at Nasser Hospital with the amount of injuries that we were seeing and how little resources we had. And if it was not for the Palestinian doctors and nurses holding my hand and showing me how to treat these patients, I think I would have been useless for the rest of my time there. So I do want to mention that. And then I also want to say, with respect to these hospitals, just remember who's inside of them that we know for sure are inside of them. And all of us saw the people that were inside. And we saw lots of families and lots of children who have not gone to school for over 5 months. And so it's really tough to deal with understanding what's actually taking place and who's sheltering in these hospitals.